This is a note for a hospital progress note. It contains only 57 words. To figure out what it's worth, we need to determine the level of care by taking apart the history, the exam, and the medical decision-making, and plugging that information into this table, which shows the documentation required for hospital progress notes. For these encounters, only 2 out of 3 key components are needed. You can use either the 95 or the 1997 E&M guidelines. In this case, the 95 guidelines work out best for the doctor, so these are the ones we'll use. Starting with the history, this is the table we use to figure out what level of history has been recorded. Here, first we have a valid chief complaint. Then, looking at the HPI, we say interval history, no new complaints. This statement is essentially invisible from an E&M coding standpoint. It contains no HPI elements whatsoever, so we get credit for no HPI. Obviously, no information has been recorded about the PFSH, and there's also no review of systems. Going back to our table, we have no HPI, no PFSH, and no review of systems, so guess what? We don't qualify for any level of history at all. The next step is to check the physical exam. Looking at the physical exam and using the 1995 E&M guidelines, here information has been recorded about the constitutional, respiratory, and cardiovascular systems. This adds up to an EPF exam. So now the second key component is known. The last step is to calculate the medical decision-making. Looking at the medical decision-making, it's always a good idea to take apart the assessment plan in a systematic manner. Starting with the problem points, here the COPD exacerbation is still not controlled, so this is worth 2 problem points. The hypertension is well controlled, so this is worth 1 problem point. So we have a total of 3 problem points. The next step is to check the data points. Looking at the data points, here all we did was review and/or order labs, which means we only get 1 data point. The last step is to check the risk. Looking at the risk, the relevant part of the risk table is the moderate risk part. Here the COPD exacerbation counts as 1 or more chronic illness with mild exacerbation. So this definitely qualifies as being a moderate risk encounter. So we have 3 problem points, 1 data point, and moderate risk. Only 2 out of 3 dimensions are needed, so this adds up to moderate complexity medical decision-making. So now the final key component is known. Going back to our table of documentation, now we know we have no history, an EPF exam, and moderate complexity medical decision-making. Remember, for hospital progress notes, only 2 out of 3 key components are needed. That means this adds up to the 99232 level of care, otherwise known as a level 2 hospital progress note. When you put it all together, this is how the final note looks. Remember, only 2 out of 3 key components are needed. Here we have no recorded history, an EPF exam, and moderate complexity medical decision-making. So here the 99232 level of care took us just 57 words to construct and is worth $69.78, which works out to $1.22 per word, which is very efficient documentation. If you want to learn to take apart a note like this, consider signing up for one of our web-based E&M coding curriculums. We offer several different subscription options to match any practice pattern. We also have a coder curriculum, which includes up to 33 AAPC CEUs for only $99. If you need E&M coding education for multiple providers, let us build you an E&M compliance web portal, which provides trackable and verifiable E&M coding education for multiple doctors.